All right, now with this example, we're going to try to identify and draw out a production possibility frontier, or a PPF, for these countries. So here's our setup again. Scotland can produce 20 sheep and 15 goats per acre. Ireland can produce 20 sheep, 20 goats per acre. And Scotland has 5,000 acres, and Ireland has 4,000 acres. So the second question is draw a PPF for each country. So let's do this. So I can draw these lines. I'm going to draw an XY axis, and I'm going to identify each axis. So I'm going to call this sheep up here and goats down here, and this is for Scotland. Now you can change this, you can change sheep with goats, and that's okay, but here in this example I have sheep on my y-axis and goats on my x-axis. So now that we have that, let's go ahead and draw out what we have. Let's suppose that Scotland would put all their resources in producing goats. So for each acre they can produce, sheep. For each acre they can produce 20 sheep, and they have available 5,000 acres. So if they were to put all their resources to producing sheep, they could produce let's do the math here correctly, 100,000 sheep. Well, if they were to put all their resources in producing goats, so they can produce 15 goats per acre, and they have 5,000 acres. So they could produce, at most, 75,000 goats. Now we can draw out the equation of this line, and we do that similar to y equals mx plus b. That is, b is the y-intercept, and m is the slope. In this case, y is going to be sheep, and x is going to be goats. So let's erase this, and I'm just going to write y equals mx plus b with slightly different letters. Sheep equals the slope, which is 100,000 divided by 75,000, or 4/3. X, in this case, is goats, and that's negative. And then the y-intercept, b, in this case, is 100,000. So what's nice about this is the slope here will tell me that one goat costs 4/3 sheep. That's the point of the slope, is that as I move over by one goat, so that's one goat, it's going to cost me 4/3 sheep. And so that's one reason to draw out the equation, is because it's very easy to identify the cost of a goat, or the good on the x-axis, by simply looking at the slope. Now we can draw out the PPF for the other country, for Ireland. So again, I'm going to put goats here on the x-axis, and sheep on the y-axis. Identify that this is Ireland. So if Ireland were to put all their resources into producing sheep, each acre can produce 20 sheep. They have 4,000 acres, and so they could produce 80,000 sheep. Well, again, if we draw a straight line now, and if they were to put all their resources to producing goats, it would be the same idea, is 20 times 40,000, and even the same number, they could produce 80,000 goats. And so if we were to write this in our equation, y equals mx plus b, we would write it sheep equal, the slope there is 80,000 divided by 80,000, or -1, times g plus 80,000. And this tells us that one goat costs one sheep for Ireland. So from this we can identify the slope. And so here is how we draw out the PPF for each country. Here is for Scotland, and here is for Ireland.